hey, look, it's great when you play with the Game Shark cheats on, like I did back on the GameCube.
Oh, can you move and shoot at the same time then?
No, but you're invincible, so you don't care as much.
Oh, okay.
On our Weekly Muse this week, we had talked a little bit about the Bethesda Showcase, a lot actually, about the Bethesda and Xbox Showcase last week, but there was also the Summer Game Fest that took place around the same time, and I wanted to at least acknowledge that it exists, and also some of the things that we saw, because there were a few interesting game announcements. I don't know if you followed any of it.
Not as much.
No. And I do have to say that in comparison to, like, the announcements at, like, Xbox and Bethesda, it might not have been quite as interesting for most people. And a lot of, like, the indie titles and stuff, those were on other smaller pieces. Like, you saw Devolver Digital still do their showcase, which is more for the skit. You like to watch those for the fun sketches that they do to make fun of the corporatization of the whole thing. But for Summer Games Fest itself, we did get a few interesting announcements. Unfortunately, a lot of it is going to be sequels and remakes.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I'll go over that a little bit before we actually get to, like, new IPs, which is the more interesting stuff, I think. But so sequels. These are a few of these. I just don't understand why we have them. So there's going to be a Kingdom Hearts 4.
Right. What's this one titled? Do we have a name?
Yeah, 560 over 385 squared.
I think you're making
Remorse.
that up, but I can't really tell.
Yeah.
Because that sounds like a name that they already have.
Yep. Yeah, it probably is. I can tell you that I think it's the same guy that's producing this as the last Kingdom Hearts game. So
Okay. At least they're keeping it together.
And keeping the story apparently as incomprehensible as humanly possible, because I cannot figure it out. But also, in other news, we don't understand why this is a thing. We're getting Alan Wake 2, because
I didn't play the first one, but
yeah, Remedy ran out of ideas. I don't know. I tried the first one. It's well known mostly for the flashlight mechanics, where you have to hold the flashlight while you're holding the gun so that you can aim.
Okay, I remember this vaguely.
Yeah, it's a very specific kind of title. The thing is, Remedy is good at making games. I'm going to tell you that, like, bless you. I got allergic to Alan Wake, but Quantum Break was pretty good, but also Control. If you've never played Control,
I have it, but I haven't played it.
I do recommend it. I think it's a really, really solid game, and considering the conspiracy theory kind of,
Yeah, I know a little bit about it from something else. I think we've touched on briefly that it is actually based upon stuff from the SCP universe.
Yeah.
Which, at some point, I do want to talk about SCP with you.
Yes.
But I want someone else on the show for that, so I'll try and find somebody who's more into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff there, and kind of like the underground foundation stuff that's going on. But Alan Wake is a hard sell for a lot of people. More happy though, yay, that there's going to be, Alex, I don't know how happy I can tell you I am. There's going to be a Goat Simulator 3.
Oh, I heard about that too. I was like, I didn't realize there was a second one.
I don't even know if there was. Maybe they just went to 3.
Straight to plaid.
Straight to plaid. It's 4-player co-op goat action. You can
4-player co-op goat action.
And if there's ever a time where we can have a nice little co-op game for a stream some
Great.
It's gonna be Goat Simulator.
It's goats with your friends.
Goats with your friends. Yeah. Exactly. So we're getting a few of those. Remakes. Okay. Big remakes going on. Last of Us is getting a PS5 remake, although...
I heard about that.
Yeah, a lot of people did say it might look a little similar to the original, but they're...
I heard about it, and then I think the people I was listening to were like, why?
It's not really that old a game?
Yeah.
I don't know. I maybe they just didn't want to keep going after like Last of Us 2 if they didn't know what to do with the storyline past that. They were thinking to themselves, well, maybe we'll just go back and upscale a little bit. I guess there is some changes that are going to be made, but it's very I can't really tell what that's going to be. Resident Evil 4 though is going to get a remake, and that looks like it's a complete overhaul, like a totally different game than what was there before.
Still not gonna play it.
There you go. Hey, look, it's great when you play with the Game Shark cheats on, like I did back on the game.
Oh, can you move and shoot at the same time then?
No, but you're invincible, so you don't care as much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, I think in the new one, you're going to be able to do that.
Oh, great.
It's going to be in third person, though, still, instead of first.
Great.
Some people weren't really sold on that with, like, 7.
I don't know. I don't play Resident Evil.
Fair enough. But, on the other hand, there's going to be a whole lot more Final Fantasy VIIs. So...
When you say a whole lot more Final Fantasy VIIs, what do you mean?
Well, you remember that they had that Final Fantasy VII remake that they made?
Yeah, vaguely, yes.
Okay, were you aware that that was only, like, part 1 of a lot of them?
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize they hadn't gone and done more of it yet.
Oh, well, they are now.
So, but what they essentially did was they took the original Final Fantasy VII game and split it into, like, the discs, I assume?
Kinda, but they also changed up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they changed all the graphics, everything's way better, all the systems are more updated, of course.
But also, like, in the first game, like, Sephiroth barely even comes into it, and there is, spoiler, although it might not be a spoiler because I didn't play it, but if you're wondering about story inconsistencies from the original game to the new one, there's supposed to be some sort of, like, anomaly that they discover toward the end. Like, that's the reason why there are changes from one game.
So they expanded on the story. Got it. So this is like
Changed
what
it
they
around.
did when they took Full Metal Alchemist, the anime, and then they went, we're not quite as happy as we want with this. Let's make Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which instead of being a 2-season-long anime, is like a 7-season-long anime.
Oh.
And we're going to gloss over some of the stuff we spent way too much time on in the first one, and expand on things we didn't go nearly in depth upon.
Right.
In the first one, in the second one, and honestly, I know you're not much of an anime fan, but Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is actually pretty good.
Yeah. I think what they're trying to go for is the multiverse-y kind of thing that everybody's into right now.
I love multiverses.
And the idea, of course, of this one is that the story of, like, Cloud and Aerith and Sephiroth and all of that is different in this version than in the original version. And so...
Or you gotta mix it up to make people want to play it. You gotta surprise them.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, yes, in terms of the overall story, it's about, like, a third of the actual storyline of 7. That's the remake part. So, obviously, they have to make others past that so that they can get the whole thing in there.
Right.
In one way or another. So there's that. There is also, though, the one I'm actually interested in, Knights of the Old Republic.
They're remaking it.
They are actually doing the remake. So.
That does sound interesting. I'd like to see how that plays out in a newer generation environment of gaming.
It was such a great RPG, and I think that it would really benefit from modern technology and updates to the user interface. Yeah, absolutely.
Who's making that remake? Is it Obsidian?
I don't think it's Obsidian. No, because Obsidian's not working for that anymore. I don't actually know who's going to be in charge of that, although, hold please, I actually do want to look at that, because for some reason, I thought that it was someone that I'm familiar with, and... gave me pause.
I want to hear that suddenly we're doing a Soul Reaver and Legacy of Kain remake and revival and remaster. I would love that if we're doing remakes and everything.
One eternity later.
This is actually something that I think was originally announced in September. They were just giving more information on it right now. But what I can tell you is that the KOTOR remake is in development by a whole bunch of people, actually. Aspire Media, Lucasfilm Games, and Sony Interactive.
That's a lot of people.
And a lot of people that worked on KOTOR, if I remember correctly. I think
Really?
Aspire... Well, yeah, Lucasfilm, like LucasArts... it wasn't Lucasfilm, but LucasArts worked on it before.
Maybe it's like when EA remastered the original Command & Conquer Red Alert and Siberian Sun games.
Maybe.
Where they're like, hey, we actually brought in like part of the original team that worked on this game
Yeah.
to help us remaster it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh shit, okay, good job, EA. We're actually proud of you for that. Like, great. Westwood Studios was fantastic until you destroyed them. But I'm glad you brought like the people in from Petroglyph that are the old team
Yeah.
from Westwood to work on that, because that is smart.
It's smart. Yeah, it certainly is.
It's also good press.
Yes, yes. And they also did mention, this is kind of nice, that KOTOR, the remake, would be an action RPG instead of like the D&D inspired combat that the original one had. It's more the turn-based. So
Okay.
they're probably gonna do something similar to like what the Final Fantasy did when they got the modern ones, and they made it more of like a real-time strategy instead of a turn-based kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes. It does say that they're rebuilding it from the ground up, but it's in early development right now. Anyway, that's gonna happen. If I had one of the remakes that I was interested in, it would probably be that one. So
Yeah. I'm probably more interested in that than anything else you've talked about. So
there's that.
especially Kingdom Hearts 4 100 over 25 by 6 times 32 second power.
Find the square root of X.
It's pi.
It's pi. Yeah. Yeah. That's they should just call it. They should just call it the Kingdom Hearts pie. That would have been great. Blueberry pie. Anyway, so there was that. But good news, there are actually a few original game titles that are going to be made, and I thought that it would be worthwhile to actually talk about those, because I'm always happy to see new IPs. So,
Yes.
first one is going to be called Callisto Protocol. Now, this might not necessarily be something of interest to you, but I do want to talk a little bit about it just because it is going to be a new game from the original devs that made Dead Space. So if you're not familiar with that story, basically there was an original dev team that worked on Dead Space, and then when they went to do 2 and 3, the dev team changed and they wanted to make them more action RPGs after that, not a horror survival game on the spaceship like the alien-inspired one that the first one was. Anyway, a lot of the dev team went off, made their own studio, and they're doing something that's like Dead Space. It's on a space station, and it's going to be more of that horror survival kind of thing. And they renamed it and got new lore and everything for it.
I think I heard about this one as well.
Yes. Not to be confused with a new Dead Space game that they're also making, or that other one that also is kind of Dead Space, because everybody's apparently making these now. But I think I have the most hope for this one, only because it's the original devs that are doing it. They formed a new studio, and so now they're doing that.
Nice.
Witchfire.
Yes.
Think you
we
and...
talked about that briefly.
Yes, not on air, though. We didn't do that.
Well, let's talk about it briefly.
Briefly, yeah. Witchfire, basically, it looks more like an action, like, shooter, but with, like, this arcane, like, fantasy setting, like...
Victorian, I think, is what it was.
Yeah, like the Victorian setting where you can, like, have fire coming out of your freaking gun and stuff. Like,
that's called a flamethrower, Nathan.
That's right, that's a flamethrower. That's right, I forgot. It's the boring gun, but back in the day. That got a lot of press. It looks really fast-paced, and the aesthetics are really interesting. So, looking forward to that. And then
And it's co-op, I believe, too, so.
I believe there is co-op in it. That would be really great. That would lend itself very well to a co-op game. And then probably the one that I'm most interested in, that we also talked about briefly but not on air, is Nightingale. And if you don't remember that one...
I don't.
Okay. Nightingale is like a survival game. It's got survival aspects, but it's set in more of a fantasy setting where there are like trolls and monsters that are coming through these portal gates into the world in more of like a medieval setting. And so you're still trying to build bases and do all of those crafting things, but also dealing with giant monsters that are coming at you.
That's what I like to do.
I'd like to do it too.
Oh, Nightingale's the one I was thinking of. That one's Victorian.
Yeah, Witchfire also has that kind of thing going on too, though. If you look at the difference between the two. Different kinds of games, similar kind of setting. Witchfire being a lot more like an actual shooter, and Nightingale being more of a crafting survival kind of game.
Okay.
But I think I like the idea behind the crafting survival, because then you actually get to use your axes on trolls.
Perfect. You can chop down the trolls, and then you can use them as firewood.
You can use
because they're vulnerable to fire.
And it keeps them from regenerating.
Exactly.
So there's that. I don't think that we are going to be waiting all that long for those particular titles, so
we'll find out.
We'll have to find out. But besides the Summer Game Fest, they also had things like Devolver Digital doing a Cult of the Lamb, I think was the one big one that they showed off. But let's face it, those are really just more entertaining for the actual sketch part.
Yeah, I heard about that too. And I think it was Yahtzee and whoever he was with at the time. And they're like, yeah, that's just Devolver being Devolver.
Yeah, it pretty much is.
It's just fine at this point.
Yeah, just do what you need to do, because it's not really as much game-centric as Summer Game Fest was. But they did make a few interesting announcements. I think the most important things there are going to be like the KOTOR Remake, and I'm looking forward to Nightingale, and I'd like to see what Callisto Protocol is. It's not as exciting, but...
Maybe we can all try Nightingale together.
If it comes out and looks good, it still looks good.
We'll see how it is.
Yeah, because I think that might be a sleeper hit. That feels like something that might be a sleeper hit.
Maybe.
We don't know because it's a sleeper hit.
It's a sleep at the wheel.
I have stopped getting my hopes up, though, for games. I don't do that anymore. Excitement died a long time ago.
He's no longer able to be excited.
But whether or not it's good or bad, if we play it, we will probably talk about it on the show. So
yes.